Hey, everybody. Welcome back to another episode of Ideas Sin version 2.0. I am your host, Denise, and this is a very different episode for me. If any of you have been following my podcast, you know that a lot of what I've recorded and shared with you all has been of other people and their stories and what it is that they've experienced throughout my journey and curiosity. But the focus has always been on like how they got into a particular hobby and what got them into doing the things that they genuinely love. Now, I want to continue to do that. I think it's so important for every single voice and every single person to be heard, and especially when it comes to their experiences, because not everyone truly understands all the different ways that you can experience this life. And so in this version 2.0, I'm kind of like doing air quotes. So apparently people in audio don't like that because you can't see it, but I'm recording video and I see myself quoting. So it is what it is. I I guess I'm struggling a little bit with this because version 2.0 is me now sharing my story with you all and sharing the stories of what I have experienced and why it is that I even got into all of the hobbies that I have briefly touched base on. So, with all the individuals who I've met them in person. I've connected with them in some way through some type of experience, some type of hobby, some type of activity. And it's very different because I went into some of these hobbies and explorations for different reasons. And I think the very first thing that many people will notice about me, or, if you talk to me long enough, you'll realize that I do get into philosophy. I'm very much about analyzing our society, life, the frameworks, how individuals interact. I'm very much into personal development, and I still am to this day. I can be very, how do I say it? I love it, but I also fucking hate it. It is so mentally and emotionally draining to get into this journey of trying to better yourself. Now, I'm not saying it's going to be like that for everybody because it really just depends on what it is that you've experienced and what it is that you're trying to train yourself into changing. Because really, what we're doing is we're reprogramming our brain. Our brain is like a computer program. It is programmed to do X, Y, and Z. But if we want to reprogram it to do A, B, C, there's some tweaking that you have to do. You're breaking a habit, you're changing some coding, and that can take a lot of time depending on what it is that you've experienced and how open you are to actually changing. And so I feel like I've been doing that for several years. And some people might wonder why I've been so into this journey and so into understanding how it is that the mind works and how it is that my mind works. And it's because I've, yes, this is a long pause. Nothing happened. I'm just kind of like struggling to find the words slash really express what it is that I've been trying to go through and change. But I needed this personal journey because I was going through a lot of things in my life several years ago. And so, for anybody who knows me, some people have heard the story, others have not. You've heard maybe tidbits of things here and there. And I'm very fortunate to have connected with so many people in my life who have supported me throughout this time, whether I stayed connected to the individuals or I didn't. And it is interesting because I've heard this quote from somebody and I always kind of stuck to it, where people come into your life for a reason, a season, or a lifetime. So who are they? And I know that I have stepped into people's lives for any of those reasons, any of those situations as well. I still have friends from high school and college. I still have friends from, let me see, oh my gosh. Yeah, just like 10 years ago, people who I've met just randomly. Um, I still stay connected. But then there are others where we connected, but, the connection faded out. And for different reasons, whether it was because of them or because of me. With this with this podcast, I actually started this one because a few years back, I was talking to my friend Brad and we were like, we should totally do a podcast because all our conversations are actually really interesting. And we still believe that. I think we do have interesting conversations. And I believe I do have a lot of very interesting conversations with a lot of different people. Now, the conversations for version 2.0, I feel like are going to get much more personal and in depth and just much more real and authentic in how I express myself and how I share my story. Because I can be difficult to read. Like there are people that you can connect to me and you think you know me, but then all of a sudden it's like I switch or I do something different or I'm very unpredictable. But there's reasons to that. And sometimes I don't even know the reasons why. It's just how I'm programmed. And I think the whole start of this spiritual journey or personal development journey was honestly um just to find a reason to live. Years ago, I had a number of different things happen all at once. Prior to 2020, I was you can look from the outside in and you can say, wow, she has a great career and a great salary, she's got great friends, she does whatever she wants. But I didn't have really good like personal relationships, like dating wise. I wasn't taking care of my health. I was eating shitty food all the time, going out to eat all the time. I was drinking so heavily. It was ridiculous. Like the thing is, the way that we were drinking is how most people drink nowadays, where it's all normalized drinking and it's excessive. And unfortunately, our society continues to promote that type of drinking because they don't want us to really live up to our highest capacity. Because when you're incapacitated, you're not in the mood to try to change your life and try to better yourself and pay attention to what's really happening in the news and try to be a better person in your society or your community, or just learn about the laws and figure out how to change those things when you see that our infrastructure in this society is truly failing us. Like it truly is, and it's just building a total disconnect amongst the people within our country. And it's really sad because we can be a great country, but unfortunately our government and our leadership right now, just in general, for years, it doesn't matter who was in office. It's just the government itself. It's like a toxic and abusive relationship with our government. And unfortunately, there are a lot of countries that have these as well. And we're not the only ones. As much as, we as Americans like to think we're the only ones living in this world, it's like, no, there's plenty of other countries and people who are going through things. And sometimes they're actually going through way worse. But we glaze over it because we're like, no, we got to just focus on ourselves. But unfortunately, as we can look around and we watch the news and all this stuff, like there is a disconnect. And there are really not that many happy people. Well, no, there are happy people, but there are also a lot of really sad and depressed people. And we can just see that by people's actions, like school shootings, the disconnect between the males and the females in our society, um, the lack of respect or accountability that people like to take. Like they do all these crimes or these actions and behaviors, and then it's like they want to blame other parties and other people and just not take accountability. Anyways, that's a conversation for another day. I'm not going to get into that. I wanted to dive in and kind of share a bit more of my background and why it is that I started this podcast. Now, several episodes ago into my intro episode, I think I published it. I'm not really sure. I did some practice sessions just to like get warmed up to using my voice, especially here and getting it recorded and shared. And so there were times that I just have I speak and I let things out and I express, but sometimes a majority of the time I don't publish a lot of these things. But I think if you listen to my episodes, you have a general understanding of where I can stand in certain situations. But I digress. I'm going to take it back. So, taking it back to a point where I was drinking too much, not taking care of my health and eating well, uh my personal relationships, like I had great friendships. I was dating, but that was a failure. um or nothing is really a failure if you learn from it, right? But I wasn't fulfilled in any of my romantic relationships. And after a certain point, I ended up in the hospital in breast cancer unit getting screened for a cyst. And luckily it was benign. Like um it was not cancerous. But for my age at that time, my early 30s, it was very they put me on high alert. They were like, yeah, you need to start getting screened. You have to start getting screened more, go into the hospital, get more checks and this and that. And for somebody so young to already be in a cancer unit, it it was a lot. And in 2019, December 31st, literally New Year's Day, New Year's Eve, New Year's Eve. Oh my God, I'm getting my dates confused. Whatever. December 31st, I was in the cancer unit, literally lying down on a cold bed on like that paper sheet. You guys know what I'm talking about. You go to the doctor's office and they have like paper on the bed. I remember lying on there, and the entire time I'm not trying to freak out. I'm just like, okay, I'm just getting screened. Like, yes, we found something, but until I get an answer, I'm not going to freak out. I'm not going to freak out. I'm not going to freak out. But as I was lying there, I started thinking about like, damn, like what if I do have cancer? Like, what am I going to do? Like, how severe is it? Breast cancer has run in my family before, and it it got bad. And I'm not going to get into my family history, but it was bad. And I'm lying on that table and I'm wondering, what am I going to do? Like, am I going to still be able to work? Am I going to be able to afford the medical bills? How do I tell my family? Like, are they going to have to support me? Am I going to have to go through chemo? Like, what is my life going to be like in the next 6 months even? I have no freaking idea. And after they told me that it was benign, meaning like it wasn't cancerous, but I still have to keep an eye out for it, it just woke me up to a lot of things. But the other thing was I was in the hospital at a different unit getting brain scans because I was also having these weird visual things happening. And I went to an optometrist and got my eyes checked. Then they're sending me to neurology and I'm getting brain scans to see if I'm having seizures or if there's something else happening. And they found nothing. And yet I was experiencing what I had finally researched online and really aligned to. And I don't know the like exact medical term, but I know like I don't know, the code name for it or the other name for it was called Alice in Wonderland syndrome. And I'm just going to take a quick peek here. Alice in Wonderland. I don't know if it's a syndrome or yes, it is a syndrome. And for those of you who have no idea what it is, because I don't expect many of you to have it because apparently it's pretty rare, but it's where my visual perception gets distorted. So, for any of you who have ever used binoculars, you know that when you hold one end, the usual end, it helps you zoom in and it makes everything that's further away look much bigger. So, it allows you to see something far away and it makes it look like it's closer than what it is. And then if you flip it to the other side, you're looking through the big lens down through the smaller lens, everything looks much farther away or even smaller, right? That's what I experienced at different times. And it would happen like sometimes multiple times in like a week, a month. And it would happen very randomly throughout several years of my life. And it was just really strange and unusual because I would have it when I'm in mid conversations with people. I had it when I was in interviews. I had it when I was talking to people. I even had it one time where I was literally telling my doctor about it. And what I ended up realizing was this was like, and this was like a side effect of like really intense stress for me, like very intense. And I would do anything and everything to kind of like snap out of it. But the thing is, I'm in conversation with people. So it wasn't like I couldn't do much. So I would try like blinking, I'd try moving around, I'd close my eyes, I'd try breathing, I'd tried like moving my head around, and nothing would stop. And I just had to let it ride out and finish on its own. So describing that to my doctor, like she didn't know what to say. She was like, "Well, okay, maybe go get your eyes checked." And then the optometrist, they or ophthalmologist, whichever, I think it was just optometrist. They scanned me and they were giving me visual tests. Nothing was wrong with my eyes. Then I go to neurology. I go get my brain scanned and they're like, everything looks normal. We don't see any abnormalities. So I'm just like, well, fuck me. I have this random fucking like visual issue and I have no idea what's happening. So that's all in 2019, right? So so I'm getting brain scans that same like month. I'm in cancer unit. I'm ending the year in the cancer unit, like getting screened for that. And then 2020 comes in and I'm like dating some other people and I actually go and I do my first real big international trip to Africa. And that scared the shit out of me because I was traveling on my own to go meet somebody and I didn't know what to expect and that added on to the additional stress that I was already experiencing. And then coming back from Africa, that's when the word started going out about COVID. Everybody's like, "Oh, COVID, COVID." And I'm like, "What the fuck is COVID?" And I'm like going through my transfers and getting back. And then we find out, oh, okay, it's like a bigger thing. It's spreading. Countries are starting to lock down, and everybody's like, you know, starting to freak out about it. So after some time, I end up um, losing my job because they downsized. Lost my job. It was like the end of a few of my relationships ended. Um, yeah, I was dealing with the hospital visits. My grandfather passed away, who essentially was a really big part of my life when I was younger, and he helped to raise me. He passed away, and COVID was happening and lockdown happened. And so all of this happened within such a short period of time. And thinking about it and looking back, like I never gave myself the grace to even say like, damn, that was a lot. I have my brain's fucked up, my body's fucked up. Um, I am depressed and I don't really even know it. I have social anxiety, like really bad. Like I literally could not go outside in public without experiencing like panic and anxiety attacks. And then the shit with my job, couldn't go to my grandfather's funeral. Like all of these things just happened all at once. And after a certain point, I started disassociating. I was like life was not real for me at that point. I was in such a different state of being. And I don't know how many people have ever experienced something like that. And I don't really know how else to describe it, but like, I don't want to say like walking around life felt like a dream, like, very just fantastical or like, yeah, or unreal. Like, I don't know, but I just, like, I didn't feel alive. Like, it felt like I was just like a zombie or something. And, um, yeah, I got to a point where I didn't want to live. I didn't. And I also was not close to my family at that time. I was disconnected from my family just from different things that happened with them in the past. And so, aside from like friends, I just felt so alone. And, even when I started to open up to some of my friends about what it was that I was experiencing, um, I remember um, I remember my friend Dave uh, having that conversation, like sharing it and telling him like how I was feeling. And he's like, D, I had no idea. Like, you wear this mask where it's like, you don't look like you're experiencing any of that. And like, you don't look like you're experiencing any of the things that you just described. And like, he was there to support, empathize as much as possible. But the fact that somebody that I was so close to, like really close friends of mine, like they didn't think that I was experiencing anything like that. Like I'm very good at hiding my emotions and my feelings and my pain and my suffering. Very good at it. Unfortunately, I guess. And I've been I mean, nowadays I like to think that I'm more expressive and people can tell when I'm upset now. And I'd like to think that that kind of keeps us connected because the whole point of like relationships and community is to kind of support each other when we are going through difficult things and to just listen and support. And yeah, I don't know. So, yeah, and so COVID was happening and, you know, the Black Lives Matter movement was happening, and then the discussions about, equality amongst different people and backgrounds and ethnicities and all these things started popping up, and it was just the same thing. It was like the anger was in there again. And I again, it just didn't help. It didn't help me want to continue living. And because all I kept looking at was everything that was in my reality, which was nothing but the pain and suffering, the disassociation, the derealization of life, and then seeing our society and everything and how fucking terrible it was. And I was like, why do I want to live like this? Why? What's the fucking point? And and then I started to connect with my family again. And I don't remember how it went about, but I remember talking to my mom, and I hadn't really like talked to her in a while. And I slowly started to rebuild that connection and relationship, but it was very difficult for me to just open up and be vulnerable. It was so difficult. So when men are like, I have a lot of difficulty expressing emotion and vulnerability, I get it. I totally fucking get it. Um, because for a very long time, I couldn't I couldn't be vulnerable. I couldn't express how I truly felt. I couldn't express weakness. I couldn't do that. And so I didn't. And I just kept pushing through. But after connecting with my mom, she started sending me these little clips on Jay Shetty because she was starting to understand like what I was going through. And she was sending me these like little clips with Jay Shetty giving like the spiritual advice and all that stuff. And when I first got it, I was like, fuck this shit. Like, this is so cheesy. This is so whatever. Like, oh, I hate this. I hate this. But something happened and I started exploring spirituality. And I was already disconnected from religion. I had no spirituality background whatsoever, but I was part of a meditation group. And so we would meet up and we'd meditate and this and that. But I was still very much early on in that. It's like people who are just reading about something very surface level, but they haven't really gotten to the deep parts of things. Like it hasn't really started to integrate within themselves. And so I was like, oh, yeah, meditation, this and that. But I never really knew how it tied to me personally. And so I started like exploring spirituality more. And I was like, okay, well, I'm going to read about Hinduism and Buddhism and like, especially Buddhism, because it was easy to relate that to my meditative practices. But got into that Hinduism, exploring the different gods and what they represented and their cultural beliefs, and then exploring Taoism and getting some tarot cards, exploring astrology, getting in and looking at like the 16 personalities and yeah, the different like personality tests, the Enneagram, all that shit just to just to learn more. Like I was hooked. I had nothing else. I mean, I was doing Krav Maga at the time, but that was also because I felt so unsafe. Period. I felt so unsafe. I've been in a lot of I've been in a lot of difficult situations and situations that yeah, caused me some trauma. And it forced me to try to take action in a different way. So I was taking Krav Maga classes to try to feel safe again. to protect myself. Because my life has been threatened at different times and different points in my fucking existence, I guess. And so I started taking that. And it was also at the time, actually, it was my way of just like trying to let out some anger too. Like I was just so fucking angry. And so taking Krav Maga classes that was mixed with like MMA, Muay Thai, it allowed me to exert a lot of that anger and that energy out. I was able to hit something. And I found a gym that was super authentic. So Ali at oh my god, Rosh wait, my bad, Ali. I'm like blanking out on the last. Anyway, Ali, I got you. Anyway, it was the most real gym that I ever walked into. Like they respected me. They were just real about their interactions and they fucking hit and they weren't afraid to hit. And Ali was super real about everything. He's like, everything I'm teaching you right now, it doesn't fucking matter. Everything I'm teaching you, all these ticks, like tricks and tips, like all of this means nothing when your life is at stake and you have to fight to live. Like you do whatever the fuck you have to do to live. If you got to play dirty, you got to do whatever, gouge out the person's. I know this is getting like very intense. This is a very intense conversation. Um, but it was reality. He had been a child soldier and he shared that with people. A child soldier. Like, imagine being a kid, like 12 years old, and then having to go to a war. Like, I'm not saying he was 12, but he was like pretty young when he went. But just try to imagine that for a second. Like, where were you when you were like 10, 11, 12, 13 years old? Yeah, I was not even thinking about war. I don't even know what the fuck war was back in the day. Like I was still probably playing with Barbies or whatever it was. And yeah, it was very surreal to hear that. But it's what I needed. I needed reality. I needed truth. And I was able to let that out. But during that time, I also had that battle with myself where I'm fighting moments where I'm so depressed and disconnected where I didn't even want to move out of my bed, out of my room. I didn't want to talk to people, look at anybody. Like it was really bad. It was really bad. It was a very difficult time in my life. And but I would still go and I'd still challenge myself. And then after a certain point, my competitive edge started to kick in. And so I started to go and really focus on training more and training harder. And I made it more routine. And then I made my spiritual routine also like very stringent, or I was waking up at like 5 in the morning and then I would do my yoga and I would meditate and then I would journal and I'd have breakfast. And it was like very, very outlined for me. I was very tough on myself. And I did a lot of different spiritual like practices, just sitting down to meditate, journaling a lot. Um, I would ride my bike around town and I'd carry my camera and I would do photography. And at that time, I was like, oh, maybe I should just be a photographer, like walk away from my career, just be a photographer. I think I can do it. Like, I started studying and watching all these videos on YouTube for photography and how to use Adobe and Photoshop and how to do this and that. And that's what I did. But I also ended up literally getting almost to like a state of, I want to say like a state of innocence After a certain point, I went through all my shit and I donated a lot of my clothes. I stopped wearing makeup. I tried to be super natural. I just tried to be as clean and neutral as possible. And I worked really hard on monitoring my thoughts and my emotions. So when certain things were happening in my mind, like if I'm out in my car or my bike, especially actually it was my bike. If I'm out on my bike and I see somebody, I don't know, not paying attention or they cut me off or something, like my initial reaction is like anger. And I then was like, you're getting angry. Okay, remember, like, you've been in their shoes before. Like, take it down a notch. Like, it's okay. Breathe. It's all good. Like, relax. I had to be very mindful. And when you're in the state of transitioning or trying to change a habit or reprogramming your mind, you literally have to be that intentional where it's like I don't want to say like every thought, but it's like I was very observant of my thoughts, how I spoke within my mind, um, the kind of words that I would use. I went through my Spotify and I deleted so much music. I deleted so much. I stopped like yeah, I deleted a lot of stuff and at some point I just stopped listening to music. The same with the shows. I was like, I don't even want to watch anything. Like I'm just going to read and just watch my photography videos and just clear out all the clutter. And I got rid of a bunch of stuff. I was just like super plain. I was super plain and if any of you know me, that's really not how I am. Like when I was up in the Northeast, I love to dress up, wear my makeup, throw my heels on. Like, obviously, depending where I lived, Boston, it was a little trickier to wear heels. But when I was in Philly and Montreal, like, we dressed up and like we went out and I got rid of all of that. I was like literally super plain and I focused on getting my career in order. And I was like, okay, I'm going to apply to all these jobs and I'm going to watch these videos on leadership. How do I ask the right questions in interviews? What should I be looking for? How do I negotiate a salary? What kind of salary should I even have? What kind of benefits should I look at? Let me research all these companies. And again, using Glassdoor, let me look at all the reviews of the employees on here and just super hyper focused on all of that. And I just lived as simply as I could. I ate super clean. I was super clean about my diet as well because I was now unemployed. I didn't have a job. COVID was happening. And so I was just like, well, fuck, I can't spend crazy money like that. So I'm going to eat as well as I can, focus on my training because now I'm doing like again, Krav, MMA, Muay Thai, it's combo of all those. And I wanted to be strong. I wanted my body to excel in my training. So I ate super clean, like ridiculous. And yeah, I didn't drink, I didn't smoke or anything like that. And so it was like a complete 180 from where I was in the beginning of the year. Close to then, like October, November, I was very different. And even with my friendships, I was being much more selective about who I spent my time with, who I spoke to, how much time I gave to others because I just got drained. Like, I just got so drained talking to other people all the time. And I needed to focus on me. I needed to focus on my mental health. And I loved all my friends and stuff, but yeah, I would tell friends, I'm like, "Hey, yeah, I can't talk. I'm going into hermit mode." And then I would not talk to people. I literally was a hermit and I didn't talk to people for a while. And then other moments where I was like, "All right, I got a strict bedtime because I got to get up for training and this and that, and I'll be out maybe once or twice a week." when people start going out and socializing again. But after a certain point, it was like that was kind of my identity. And then I got a job very quickly. I interviewed, and then within the next week I had my one interview, then I had two other interviews, and then after that I got a call from my recruiter. They're like, "They want to hire you, did you accept the deal, blah blah blah." And I was like, "Yes." And as I'm walking, I'm like super excited. I remember I got the call. I was down at Davis Station, Massachusetts, and I'm walking home because I like to walk home sometimes. Was it Davis? No, it wasn't Davis. It was a different train stop. It does not matter. You guys, it doesn't matter. I'm walking home from the train that evening, and I get the call from the recruiter. They offer me the job, and I accept it because we had already talked numbers prior, and I accept it. And I'm walking and I'm like happy. And then out of nowhere, my body just stopped. And I was like, I'm moving. I didn't know where the fuck I was moving. I had no fucking clue. It just hit me out of no, like I literally just stopped. It's like from a movie. It's so random. I'm just walking and all of a sudden I'm just like, I'm moving. It was the craziest realization. And so I go and I'm like talking to my mom and I'm like this and that. And I'm like, I got to move. And then I'm researching like a motherfucker where I'm going to move. And then ultimately, after researching, spending a lot of time doing all of that and posting up my room to look for a subletter and getting everything done, I moved to Austin, Texas within like a month. Like month, yeah, like a month and a half or so. I was out. I was out so fast. And then I came to Austin and I started my new life, my next chapter. And that was a really big deal. I packed up all my shit. I found a minivan that I rented, which was much cheaper than a moving van. So anybody who's moving, quick travel tip, you can look for a minivan where you can put the seats down, and that actually has a lot of storage room for your shit, depending on what it is you're packing. But that ended up being cheaper than a moving van, especially when I'm driving across the country. So there was that. But it was very different. I've never been to Texas. I never set foot in Texas. I just got on Google and I researched all the streets. I looked at all the neighborhoods. I was like, okay, what's like median salary here? What's the median age range? Like, what is the culture like? Like, let me do my little drop pin. I took the little guy on Google Maps and I would drop him in the streets and, I'd figure out. Like, does this look like a good neighborhood? Do I want to move to this apartment? Okay, yeah, sure. I organized everything. I rented a place down here, moved down. I did a video call, and that was that. And I moved down. But feels like I covered a lot and I felt like I was all over the place. But I think a lot of it is also because it's weird to talk about some of the pains that I've had on a podcast and to share my story, because a lot of what I've done, all these hobbies and experiences, it's like it is based on your curiosity. But curiosity is what actually really helped my spiritual healing. And I've been through a lot of traumatic shit, and I've been trying so hard to heal and to be a better person, and to live my life as fully as I can after finding, like, I don't know, some renewed hope, I guess. And curiosity is going to be the thing that helps you get out of your rut wherever you are. When you explore your curiosity, you're exploring a deeper part of your psyche. When you're curious about something, you should ask that question like, oh, why am I curious about this? Like, why do I want to learn more about this? And maybe you don't have the answer at the time, but it's still something that you should explore. And for me, some of these activities and hobbies were ways for me to heal some of my wounds, some of my traumas that I had been through. But at the time, I didn't know that I was doing that. It feels like deep down, my subconscious knows what it has to do to thrive and to grow and to change for the better. But consciously, it's difficult because I'm rewiring. And why am I rewiring something that's already concrete in my brain? You know? And this podcast is to share the stories of the people who have been on my show and then other people who will be on my show, but also for me to share my stories and for me to share my voice. Because for many years, I was afraid to share my voice. I was afraid to share my experiences and share my reality for fear of, I don't know, judgment. Yeah, I guess that's it. Yeah, the fear of judgment. But at the end of the day, it's like, who the fuck cares? People are going to judge regardless of what it is that I say or what it is that I do. And for many of us, especially like the type A's, the high achievers, like we strive because yes, we want to achieve, we want to accomplish, we want to do this and this and that. But like when it gets to a point of like perfectionism and then perfectionism, unfortunately, freezing you from taking action, it's because we are afraid of failing. We are afraid of judgment. We are afraid of being ridiculed for mistakes or whatever that is for people. But the thing is, there's nothing to be ashamed about. You know, I've been so fortunate to talk to so many different types of people in so many different places, different countries of different socioeconomic statuses, doing different jobs in different industry, like everything. Um, and they've all shared different experiences and stories with me, their own fears, their own insecurities. They felt safe enough to tell me these things. It's not something that is uncommon. Like we're all so much more connected than we think. We all think that we're the only ones going through something. We may not, I'm not going to generalize it and say everybody thinks this, but like there are many people who think they are alone. There are many people who think they are the only ones experiencing something. That many people think they are, I don't know, failures, or they're afraid to stand out because of what people might think, or you know, whatever it is. They're not striving, or they're not achieving their parents fucking standards or whatever. And you know, or you know, they're struggling in their relationships, or they're struggling with their own mental health or their physical health. And it is what it is. Like we all go through something. And the thing is, like, we're not alone in our pain and suffering, is what it ultimately comes down to. Like, it doesn't matter what the situation is. The fact is that we're all hurting. We're all fucking hurting. And it all varies. You might be hurting, and it might be like a little bit, but then there's also people that are fucking hurting. Like they are struggling. And I have been on that fucking wavelength for too long. I don't want to say like too long because I experience like you look at my social media, this is a whole other thing that I have is like and that I've struggled with social media is and we all do, you know, like we all try to post the best pictures. We try to post the best impressions and you know, that's not always the case. Sometimes I just do that because I need some visual representation of something that I want to feel. So, you know, some people will post a million selfies of themselves because maybe they do have insecurities with their image and their confidence, or maybe they just love posting selfies, you know? And actually, I've been observing social media a little more and I've been finding a trend that if I post pictures of myself, I'm more likely to get likes than if I'm posting pictures of other random things or other people, which is just really interesting in general. So I get it. Like if you're using social media as a strategy. Anyway, it doesn't matter. But like this is what I do. I analyze things and I observe. Um and so the upcoming episodes that I hope to share with you all will hopefully shed some light on why I did some of the things that I did. I already shared, like, for example, Krav Maga was a way for me to exert out my anger and frustrations, but it was also a way for me to feel safe and to learn how to defend myself because I've been in many situations where I have not felt safe and my life was threatened, unfortunately. And I have experienced things that have traumatized me. And, you know, I've taken the psychological test to note that and it's affected my life to a point where I wasn't living it the way that I truly wanted to because I was living in fear. And I still live in fear. Don't get me wrong. I still have my anxieties. I still have my random paranoias and my stressors and things like that. But I'm aware of them and I'm trying to work through them. And the thing is, many of us are struggling with something, whether it's an identity shift. You're going from changing one career to another, which I have done this year, guys. It's stressful. Anyways, it like doesn't have to be, but like I'm working on it. Anyway, that's another conversation for another day. Like shifting from one identity to another, shifting jobs could be something, shifting your roles. So sometimes like people will experience it, even as something as simple as like, I'm single and I'm never getting married to I'm married and I have kids and I never wanted kids and I'll never really admit to people that I didn't want my kids and if I could change it I never would have had kids, but I love my kids. I love my kids, you know. And it's hilarious because you guys have no idea how many times I have conversations with people and it is like that. They're like, I'm like, so did you like it? Like blah blah blah. And it's like, you know, it's like I love my kids. I love my kids, but if I could go back or yeah, I wouldn't have kids. If I could go back, like I would change it. But again, like I also don't because I love my kids and you know, I actually wouldn't change it. And so it is funny because you kind of see how people struggle with the duality of a situation. And they're like, yeah, like I love it, but also like this is not what I would have chosen had I known what it was. Um, but it's it's amazing to hear how many stories are out there where people make certain decisions and you're kind of like stuck with them and it's just like well how are you dealing with it, how have you accepted it in your life, how is it impacting you, and are you able to accept that you can experience the good and the bad in a particular situation. And that's something that would be really interesting to get into in a future episode. Unfortunately I don't have a lot of time here. This is already pretty long. I was not expecting it to be this long, but there's the duality of life that we all experience. And understanding that in order to live out the good, sometimes you have to experience the bad to know what good actually is. And it can be really hard. And once you start diving into your spirituality, your personal development, healing practices, you're going to be challenged in many different ways. And you have to be very mindful of who it is that you listen to, your spiritual gurus or whatever, because there's a lot of people that like to talk, but I listen to some of them and I'm just like, I got a question. Can you answer this? And then they're like, oh, that's a great question. And they give me some high level bullshit. And I'm like, that is so cheesy. But anyway, uh, topic for another day. I literally have to hop off now. I have a meeting. So thank you all so much for listening. I will eventually hop back on and we'll talk about something else. But in the meantime, thank you all so much for listening for this blurb. And we'll see if I actually publish this. We'll see. Maybe I'll do another one. I don't know. We'll find out. Bye, y'all.